Hey guys, Mike here. So today, I'm here to talk to you about Horrible Histories, the movie, Rotten Romans. In this review, I'll be going over a brief summary of the plot, my quick thoughts about the film, and whether or not you guys should go and see it. So I'm going to try and keep this review spoiler-free. However, if you don't know anything about the film and you want to go in completely blind, then it's just come back to this video once you've seen the film. So with that, let's get started, shall we?
Excuse me, I just need to nip to the loo.
So because there are multiple stories going on in this movie, I'm just going to give you a brief summary of each of them. The Emperor is dead, so his son must take over. A young Roman boy named Atty gets himself in trouble, so he gets sent to serve in the army in Britain. A young Celtic girl wants to be a warrior, and a Celtic woman doesn't like the way that she and her people are being treated, so she starts a rebellion against the Romans. And those are pretty much the main stories of what's going on in this movie. And so we have Horrible Histories, the movie, Rotten Romans. So first of all, I have to clarify, as a kid, I didn't really read any of the Horrible Histories books. So I don't really know the style that Horrible Histories goes for. But I imagine as the books were aimed for children, they'd go for a slightly juvenile style whilst trying to be informative for kids as well. And I'd say for the most part, that's what the movie does as well. But I'd say if you were going into this movie expecting it to be historically accurate, then I'd say you'd be a little bit disappointed. I would say that this movie does try and keep things educational, but at the same time it is trying to lean more towards its style of comedy than it is for historical accuracy. Though I would say to the movie's credit that in the credits they do a fact or fiction section. So they'll say some things that did happen in the movie and they'll say whether they actually did happen or whether they didn't happen or whether they've just generally been distorted over time. And this would have been good had it not happened so late in the credits, because when the first fact or fiction came up, like at least over half the people who were in the theatre with me had already walked out. And then by the time the second one came on, I was pretty much just already out the door. So I think if they kind of kept it all a lot closer to each other, people might have actually stayed and listened. But though I have to be honest that my initial impression going into this movie was I was expecting this to be completely awful, unfunny, and just generally not a very good time at the cinema. However, I found that I actually fairly enjoyed this one, because while the humour is quite juvenile, and for the most part it isn't really hilarious, I would say that there wasn't a single joke that I didn't laugh at. There weren't any jokes that were insanely hilarious, but I would say that none of the jokes fell flat and were completely unfunny. You know, the film kept a nice balance of just mediocre humour, which I take mediocre humour over just completely unfunny comedy any day. And well, it was quite funny because throughout this movie, I really felt that they were making a lot of references to Monty Python movies. And at the end, my assumptions were confirmed when they pretty much make a joke that relates to the life of Brian, and also Spartacus as well, which I have to admit was actually really funny. As well, the film's decently cast as well. There wasn't anyone who gave a particularly great performance, but at the same time, I would say that everyone was decent in this. Overall, guys, I enjoyed this movie a lot more than I thought I would. It was fairly funny, it was decently acted. Though it wasn't historically accurate, it does make up for it by, at the end, telling you what was fact or fiction. But honestly, this movie isn't going for 100% historical accuracy. It's more of just a reflection of what time was like back then, and then they kind of just do their own thing. Because I'm not really sure who said this quote, but it goes a little something like this. First, get your facts straight, then distort them at your leisure. And I would say that this movie is pretty much the perfect example of that. Because the guys who made this movie definitely know what they're talking about, but instead of going for historical accuracy, they just want to make a fun movie. And I think that they've, for the most part, done that. But now, as for whether or not you guys should go and see it, despite all the fairly decent praise I've given to this movie, I actually probably wouldn't recommend that you should go see it. Because while there's nothing particularly terrible in this movie, it's more the fact of that there's nothing exactly great enough in it that I would recommend that you should go see it in the cinema. However, if you're a massive die-hard fan of the Horrible Histories series, then I'd say this is definitely the movie for you. Because like I said, though I don't really know anything about Horrible Histories, I can kind of imagine that this is definitely the style that they would go for. Okay guys, that's my review of Horrible Histories, the movie, Rotten Romans. If you've seen it, what did you think about it? And what's your favourite series in the Horrible History books? Whatever it is, drop it in the comments below, and until next time, I've been Michael. See ya!